What's up, you guys? Thank you for clicking on the video today. This is gonna be the fourth video in the tuning through the stages series. So what we're gonna be doing today is we're going to be upgrading my 2005 Subaru Outback XT to stage 3. So if you haven't seen my last video, I will put a card up here and you can go check it out. In that last video I did stage 2. We upgraded all the parts to stage 2, did some tuning, then we did virtual dyno, and then we went to the drag strip and seen what kind of times it would run. On stage 2, it made 260 foot-pounds of torque and 250 wheel horsepower, according to the virtual dyno. This video, we're gonna be doing stage 3, which encompasses a lot of stuff. This is probably one of the most component-heavy stages. So for this stage, you need a fuel pump, which we already have in there. So I have it's an AEM 340 LPH fuel pump, like just bolt into the factory fuel system. So I have one of those installed. We're going to need to upgrade fuel injectors, fuel rails, fuel lines. We're going to be doing TGV deletes, upgrading the turbo inlet because it's a good time to do that while you have the intake manifold off and you're replacing the TGVs and the fuel system and stuff. I'm also going to be installing a new air oil separator because it's a good time to do it, but that's not going to affect the power in any way. And then we'll be doing a stage 3 tune, and I'm also installing a flex fuel computer from eFlex Fuel Technologies, and I'll put a link to that flex fuel system in the description below. So I have a more detailed video on building a fuel system from scratch, and I will put a card up here for that video as well. This video, I'm basically redoing my fuel system almost entirely. I'm going to reuse some of the parts from that as much as I can, and then I'm going to redo it because there's some things I did the first time I didn't really like, so do it better this time. So I'm also starting a business. If you want to learn more about that, I go into more detail about it. I'll link a card up here for that video too. But to quickly sum it up, starting a business where I am 3D printing car parts, and I'm doing this in a way that the car parts are just as functional as like more expensive big companies parts, but at like half the cost. So that's my current business model. So in this video, you're going to see a lot of 3D printed stuff, and all the stuff that you see in this video is going to be uploaded to my website, which there should be a shop tab down here, and I'll also put my website in the description below. So with all that out of the way, let's get into the video. So this is stage 2. We got the air intake system from stage 1, intercooler from stage 2, and then we have the downpipe from stage 2, and then a stage 2 tune. With stage 2, you have the right airflow in and the right cooling and the right airflow out. Airflow is very important for all engines to make power. So now, since we have unrestricted airflow in and unrestricted airflow out, we are maxing out the stock turbo. To make more power, we can further unlimit the airflow restrictions, but also another way is to add more boost. But to add more boost, add more air, you need more fuel. So that's why stage 3 is kind of the intermediate between stage 2 and stage 4. If you plan to stay stock turbo, you really don't need to do stage 3 stuff. You can do some of the stuff from stage 3, turbo inlet, TGV deletes, stuff like that, but you don't need to do fuel system mods if you're staying stock turbo. And obviously switching to ethanol, you may be able to squeak it on the stock turbo, I think, and stock injectors. You might at least need to replace the injectors to run ethanol. But you don't need to replace the whole fuel system. As it sits, we'll see the difference between ethanol, but ethanol makes a huge difference on these engines. Boosted cars love ethanol. You can make like 40 to 50 horsepower difference just from switching fuels, and you can make even more tuning it for ethanol. The reason you want to do stage 3 is pretty much all fuel system mods is you're not going to see a huge power increase from stage 3 alone, with the exception of ethanol. But with stage 3 alone, it's just prepping you for a big turbo. So we're getting the fuel system built up and ready to deliver the fuel that a bigger turbo requires, so that in stage 4 you make that much more power, and you're not limited to your fuel system. Stage 3 mods I got right here on the floor. A lot of stuff is going into stage 3, so I'm going to show you each thing real quick. Right here on the left we have a new carb-approved Cobb air oil separator. That's going to go in now. Not really part of the stage 3 package, but it's just easiest to put on when I'm doing the rest of this stuff. So we're going to install that now. Same thing with this. This is a Cobb carb legal turbo inlet, and that is kind of part of stage 3. You could do it as stage 2, I would suppose, but like I said, it's easier to install now doing the stage 3 mods, so I'm putting it in stage 3. We're also installing the Flex Fuel Technologies eFlex Plus Flex Fuel computer. Fuel system, AN lines, -6 AN lines. I don't know how many of these will be reused since I'm redoing the fuel system, but I'm gonna reuse what I can of this, and then I have some spare hose to make new lines if needed. Then we got the IBR fuel rails, D-Works 1200cc top feed injectors, TGV deletes, custom made a 3D printed mount, so you can buy that mount on my website. If you just click the shop tab over here, if you want to install an eFlex Fuel Plus computer on your car. Then I also have these TGV Delete plug kits that you could also buy on the website, so go check those out. There's no bolts in there right now, but there will be. Then we will also be installing a Aeromotive A1000 fuel pressure regulator with the custom mount that I made, also available on my website. That mounts to the factory intake manifold, so it should also work for 08 to 14 WRXs since they use the same intake manifold. And then we have the ethanol content sensor with my ethanol content sensor mount and adapter bracket for my car. I need to figure out what all vehicles this fits on. The ethanol content sensor mount is universal, and then this adapter for the mount is for, it bolts to the factory, where the factory fuel lines and fuel pressure regulator bolt to. That's where this bolts to, so I need to see what applications are the same, figure out what that fits with, but that is all available on my website. All the stuff that I said is mine is available on my website, and I would really appreciate it if you guys went and checked it out. Everything's very affordable and competitive pricing to what is on the market now. So as you probably seen earlier, the fuel system, fuel lines is removed. To do this job, we're going to pretty much need to take off the whole top end of the engine, so we're gonna have to pull the intercooler out, the intake manifold is gonna come off, all the fuel lines gonna come out, take the TGVs off, and then we'll be able to, you know, take out the factory turbo inlet, get that out of the way, and then this whole top end should be opened and we can install and route lines for the air oil separator. I think at that point I'll install the turbo inlet, install the TGVs, build the fuel lines around it with the intake manifold on, and that'll pretty much be it for stage 3. So let's get into it. All right, intake manifold is out, which is the hardest part. We also got the turbo inlet out. You can see down inside of my intake ports, and everything is nice and clean still. No oil, no deposit. I made these intake block off plates. These are also for sale on the website, so go check that out too. But these just slap onto here. Comes with hardware. So these are really nice because usually you would put tape or a cloth or something in there. The tape is not actually foolproof for things falling in there. It peels back because there's like oil on the surface, or you drop something hard enough, it'll go right through the tape. So these are nice because it's a complete block off, so you don't have to worry about anything going in there. And it's also a pretty nice tight seal, and it'll keep any debris from coming out. It doesn't matter if it's greasy. Good little block off plate there. Now I have full confidence that nothing will go into my engine while I'm working in here, and it'll also allow me to
get in here and clean all this grease and stuff out pretty aggressively and not have to worry about anything going inside of my engine. So yeah, go check those out on the website if you're interested. This just goes to show you how nice these, how nicely these TGV deletes open up the intake. Just no obstructions at all, just right in there. I don't know how much horsepower it's actually good for, but I think this test will be kind of good for judging that from the get-go, because we're not going to be changing any real like power numbers. All that's going to be changed with this test is the airflow basically, and the fuel flow, but we don't need the extra fuel at the moment. It's just preparing for a later stage. We got the TGV deletes in the car. I think I need to make a block off plate for the top of this as well, because I had to put rags in there. So now we can start laying in the fuel system. The only thing I can't put in right now for the fuel system is the fuel pressure regulator, because it mounts to the intake manifold, but I can put the ethanol content sensor right here, so we can route the inlet line through the ethanol content sensor, and then the inlets are on the front of the ports here. So I'll put the one that I had made previously that has the connection and the T in the middle that goes to the inlet. Then figure out, the front should be the right length. The inlet's probably gonna need to be modified in some way, but we're gonna get that stuff put in right now. I got the front hoses hooked up. This hose needs to go to the inlet. So just off camera here. Okay, so here's the inlet that goes to the fuel rails. So this needs to be a little bit shorter. So I'm gonna take some length off of this. Install this loosely. Okay, so it's got a little bit of wiggle room, but that's good because I probably need to work it around the return line for the fuel pressure regulator, but I think that's in a good spot for now, and it just lined up with this mount perfectly. So next line I'm going to figure out is the one that goes from here to the firewall, which is a very short line. All right, so for right here we just got a little straight section. I got a new piece of line, put the fitting on there, the straight fitting. And then I put the straight fitting on the ethanol content sensor so that I can get an idea of where I want to cut this one, so I can mount this fitting to it. So I just marked right there. If you want a little bit more detailed of a video on how to do all this AN fitting fuel system stuff, I'll put a card up here so you can go check out that video. I made a whole video on doing a AN fuel system. So I'm basically just putting that same fuel system back in the car and just modifying some of the hose lengths to fit in a more like compact package, because the first time I made it, it was kind of all over the place. So I kind of just condensed everything, and so now I'm just having to make some lines shorter and stuff. Got the inlet line installed, so the fuel system is done from firewall inlet to fuel rail inlet. So now the next step is going to be to mock up and figure out the return fuel line setup. So the way my return line setup works is that this back fitting off of the fuel rail goes to one end of the fuel pressure regulator. So this is going to mount up here. One of these side fittings is going to be for each fuel rail, and then this bottom one goes to the firewall. So this is going to mount up here. Return lines are going to route to here, and then the bottom one is going to go to the firewall. So in order to get those lines situated, I need to finish up installing the intake manifold. That's going to be the next step, and involved with that is going to be plumbing all of these hoses for the turbo inlet, probably finishing up routing lines for the air oil separator, wiring up the eFlex Fuel Technologies flex fuel computer. A lot of stuff that needs to go down now, but I'm just going to focus on getting the intake manifold back in, and then do the other stuff as it comes. Alright, so I just loosely installed the fuel pressure regulator. So this hose comes through the gap in the intake manifold, and I'll put the bolts in there. Right now we're just doing loose fitment. So hopefully you can see that lower fitting down there. It's got room to put a piece of hose on it. I may just need to like have this disconnected, tighten the hose, and then install this. So it should have enough slack. Probably route it behind this right here. Yeah, so come behind this, down underneath the ethanol content sensor, right around here, and a 90 might fit here really nice. I'll have to test fit it, but looks like it fits in there well. This line fits next to it. Everything's nice and tidy now. So, okay, that was the other thing. So the two fittings on the outside right here, these go to the outlet of the fuel rails. So this one I think is going to be best to go to the back passenger side rail, and this one I think I'll just loop from there up to here. It's going to be a small piece of hose. We're going to have to figure out what fittings will work. All right, so ignore the nothing is actually routed in the right lines. I'm just kind of trying to check my fitting situation to see if I need to order any more fittings, which I do. So but let me kind of show you my idea. Right here I'm putting a straight fitting on this end, and it's supposed to go into here. That goes to the fuel rail. So I need to make like a little loop right here. I tried putting 290s, and then also I tried this guy, but it gets it like way too close. So I have some fresh hose that should be able to make this nice radius. I mean, the fresh hose that you can bend at 180 degrees pretty tight, so it'll be able to make a nice come out of here, go 90 down into that other fitting right here. So I'll be able to make that line pretty easy. For this side, I need to get a straight fitting to come off of here so that the hose can go along here, go right above the bracket, drop down below the ethanol content sensor bracket, and then come through here and go to a 90 down here. And it was hooked up earlier, but I did like actually tighten one of these on there all the way, but a 90 fits under here and it clears that AC hose perfectly. So the 90 will probably be angled that way a little bit, but it'll just go from underneath to there. Nice clean, it'll work. And then as far as this one going to the other side, this isn't tucked under the intake manifold, but this little 90 here, it's just barely fitting there. So that'll go there. And then I think I'll probably use fresh hose, or this might bend, I don't know. But I'll tuck this underneath the intake manifold right here and route it down there to the other side and tie that in, and that'll be just be a 90 on that end. That's gonna be the fuel system setup, so it'll roughly look like this, except this will be more hidden, but it's way more tidier than it was before. Everything is right here. There's not a lot of excess line or hoses. It's all really nice, neat, tidy. So hopefully that keeps the car low profile. But everything fits nicely. This bracket, it actually turned out to be like the perfect mounting location for this fuel pressure regulator. So I think that's pretty awesome. So this location is pretty good. All right, so I got the fuel system finished up for the most part. We have the fuel inlet coming in to the ethanol content sensor. That does a 90 and goes down between the manifold here to a T fitting in the middle there. One end of the fitting goes to the front of this fuel rail. The other one goes to the other fuel rail. On this side, you can see we have straight fitting, bent hose, and then a 90-degree fitting that goes into the return side of the fuel rail, and then comes up into the side of the fuel pressure regulator. This side goes down through here under the intake manifold, connected to that side of the fuel rail. And then the next step in the process would be the hose coming out from here and going into here. So that's the only one we gotta do left. While I'm waiting for that fitting, I'm gonna continue cracking away at some of this other stuff. The manifold is loosely installed, so it's not bolted in, but I'm gonna start finishing up routing lines for the air oil separator and the turbo inlet. But I'm probably gonna do the turbo inlet first. I think that's like a smart idea. And then we'll route the lines peripheral to that. And then probably the flex fuel computer will route those lines as well. Okay, so I plugged in the factory harness into this blow-by sensor with this new fitting that they include. So since this front fitting on the turbo inlet is the new location where this would go, this harness doesn't reach up to there. So you basically have to extend it. So they give you this hose. So I'm gonna connect this hose to this end and route it underneath the manifold and connect it to there. So now this line goes from right there to the back side of here. And now this line will go from here, probably over the top and into one of those guys. I need to see which one it is. So we have one port left on the turbo inlet. It's this guy right there. And that's a crankcase breather. So included with the air oil separator is this little piece here. So it's got 5/8 inch hose to go to that barb. This is 1/2 inch, so it's adapting it to 1/2 inch to go on to right here. So I need to slip that onto that fitting with some 1/2 inch hose connected to it and route that, probably following the angle of this line into that other one there. But it's all done now, so I can give you a look at what the final product is. Let's start with the fuel system. I kind of gave you a walkthrough of it before. We got the fuel pressure sensor in there, mounted up, all the hoses routed correctly. Nice tidy package there. Turbo inlet, all the hoses routed to it. I still need to put this hose back on there, but that's good. And then we have the air oil separator with all the lines coming through, going to their respective locations. This piece I need to make, I'm probably gonna 3D print like a hose separator so these stay like down here like this and they look nice and tidy. Got the flex fuel computer down there and all the wires for it routed through the center out here, plugging into the fuel injectors. So everything's routed. All we need to do is install this guy, put the intercooler back in, bypass valve hose, vacuum reference, all that stuff. So it's all ready to go. I just need to put the intercooler on. So stage 3 has a lot of components to install. So the video is kind of long at this point, so I'm going to call it a video here. So the next video will all be tuning, virtual dyno, and drag racing. So
stay tuned for that video. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. If you know somebody who might like this video, please share it with them. And if you aren't subscribed, please consider subscribing. Hit the bell icon so you get notified when the next video gets dropped. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.